and
Okay.
I'm
I think the mayor asked me to chair this in Ed's absence. So this is the March 19 special meeting of the Board of Estimate and Taxation. May we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Mayor Harry W. Riley. And here. Mr. Ed Abrams. Right here. Mr. Ed Camacho.
I'm here.
Mr. Kendrick Constant. You're muted, but I can see that you're just here. Mr. Troy Gilleret.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Artie Kasimis. Not here. And Ms. Ann Yang.
I am here.
Here. And with 4 present, I believe that is still a quorum, right?
We do have a quorum, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so this is a continuation of our operating budget review, specifically with reference to grants this evening. Is that right, Tom?
that is correct. Yes.
Okay. First on the agenda is Harbor Commission. Mr. Tibb.
Kibbe, Alan Kibbe.
Oh, Tibby.
Kibbe or Kib? You're up, Alan, on Harbor Commission.
James Allen Kibbe, I'm the chair of the Norwalk Harbor Management Commission. I expected our treasurer, Chris McDonald, to be online to do chat with you all. We also have from the Harbor Commission, Jeff Mangels, who is our vice chair of the commission. So I haven't been able to reach out to Chris and see where he is. I think Chris, Jeff and I could probably answer questions. If you have.
Alan, let me just share my screen so that everybody knows what we are looking at here. Let me know when everyone can see that and if it's legible or need to blow it up.
It's good for me.
Good for me.
Okay, so yeah, with the grant recipients, it's a little bit different of a format from the spreadsheet that we've been showing in previous meetings. They really, each one of these grant recipients only have one line item on that spreadsheet and within our enterprise reporting platform. So what we do is we send out grant applications and each of the individual areas complete these, but the key numbers that you'll see here is what they're asking for. So in this case, 25-26 for the Harbor Commission, they're looking for $10,000. And for comparatives, previous year fiscal 24-25 was $15,000. So those are the key numbers that we're starting with. And there is a fair amount of backup and detail on each one, showing various levels of detail. So with that, I guess, if you have anything else to add, Alan, but the good news is they're coming in a bit lower than last year. Fairly modest amount. So
okay.
We're able to increase our revenue by we have a transient mooring program now where we use an electronic registration service called DACWA so that individuals from out of the community who are traveling on Long Island Sound can come to Norwalk and get a mooring for $40 a night and enjoy what Norwalk has to offer. We have moorings near what I call the Red Spindle, which is off the tip of Veterans Park, and also out by Sheffield Island, so people can spend a night digging into Norwalk. We have dinghy tie-up slips now at the visitors dock right off Washington Street. So there's a good opportunity for transients to spend money in Norwalk, both on Washington Street or in East Norwalk, as well as put a little money into mooring fund. So it's been very successful. This year we'll be increasing the number of moorings actually to have more guests from out of town enjoying our vibrant community. Our other real source of regular income is the rental of moorings in the harbor, it's Sprite Island Yacht Club. The main anchorage for Norwalk or the public is in with the center of the harbor near the red spindle, again, for those who know the harbor. And then we have the yacht clubs to the east, Norwalk Yacht Club and the Rowayton Club there. There's our other revenue source.
So your revenues have increased because of the ease with which those rentals, if you will, are
So
occurring.
we've had a few rentals. It's not a lot of money, a few $1,000s, but every little bit helps. We've also received some rental income from the Walk Bridge project, all those barges and things, both in the harbor and also out south of Sheffield Island Light. There's 3 big yellow balls there. If you ever go out there on a boat trip, that are barge moorings for big pieces of big parts for the new bridge, and we receive a mooring permit fee for each of those moorings throughout the construction project on an annual basis. Again, not a lot of money, but it's the state has capped the mooring revenue at a maximum of $200 per mooring for the season, regardless of what's on it, whether it's a 10-foot rowboat or a 50-foot barge. That's what the state has decided that we can charge. So we get $50 here, $50 there. So each of those moorings for us is up to $200 probably.
Yeah, we've also increased the per foot mooring fee from $3 to $5 per foot. So that added some well-needed money.
Okay,
And that in turn, we don't need as much from the city.
that's great. Are there any other questions?
Yes, I have some questions. So first off, I wanted to thank you for reducing your request for funds. If I look at your revenue, mooring permit fees look as if they're actually going down, right? What you said about increasing them. So in 23, 24, your actuals were $65,700. And you believe you might be getting 50. So if you've done these things to increase the number of moorings, the fees, shouldn't your moorings be going up?
So if
Steve,
I understood, sorry, if I understand you correctly, that our overall revenue has gone down, but it should be going up. It actually, I believe it actually went up. But another thing that we're doing is with the in conjunction with the harbor master and deputy harbor masters, we are reorganizing the harbor so that it's safer for the vessels. So some of those vessels which did have permits, we did not renew only because they didn't have a vessel on the last time. They've sold the vessel, but they're just trying to keep their mooring. So we are being very diligent on allowing access to the harbor for moorings when people actually want it. So, and I believe the harbor master has a couple of people on a waiting list now. So we may not have as much room. The problem that we have is that we don't have enough depth as far as the water is concerned. For power boats, we're fine. For sailboats and especially larger sailboats, they need deeper water because of their keels.
Okay, but if I look at your and perhaps it's difficult because your trailer's not with you, but if I look at page 8 of 36 of the package, and we look to the bottom right of the page, your revenues for 2024 were $90,000. And right now you're projecting, and last year, or for this current fiscal year ending 2025, you're suggesting that they'll be 80, but then you're projecting for next year that they're going to be 70. So it kind of says that you're doing really great, and I have a suspicion that you're doing better than here. And so a real question is, do we even need our funding?
Well, we do have fixed expenses. The harbor master gets paid. We are installing other moorings for transient moorings. The transient moorings, and what's not reflected here is that we've just acquired multiple, I want to say eight mooring balls that we had to pay for. We also have to inspect those moorings every 2 years. Those moorings need to be inspected by a certified mooring inspector. So they have to replace chain if needed. They have to pull up the mooring mushrooms and verify that everything is good, including the eye, the shackles, the swivels. The mooring ball, we did that so that it would be easier for the mooring. One of the big complaints was that the lines were in the water. So we got new mooring balls. I call them balls, but they're more like cans. And the lines will be up on top out of the water, making it easier for the mooring people. We've also just acquired a new drone that we had to have, and that helps with the moorings, and it also helps the Marine unit, the Marine police, and the harbor master. So we just acquired that just recently. In fact, it was just delivered.
Okay, my point is that you're sort of one of the few units and departments where you generate revenues, significant amount of revenues, and it seems you've done a great job in organizing that. And similar to Oak Hill, many of our revenue generating entities, and then the goal should be is that you actually are self-sustaining. And it sounds as if you've done a great job. And given where we are in the budget cycle, and school cuts, capital projects, and who knows with Trump and federal funding, is it possible that you can be a self-funding organization?
We can certainly try to be self-funding. There are interns that we also pay for, or help pay for. We don't pay for the entire amount. So there's interns that do that, and we would also like to offer other things to the city. And Alan and I are always looking to see how can we benefit the people of Norwalk, so that they can enjoy the harbor and enjoy the water. We go for grants, and we just received a study grant for street ends and other things, and we're also doing work with the harbor, and a consultant just hired. I should say that the city hired. We don't hire anybody, but
No,
the city just hired.
The harbor is an important resource for the city of Norwalk. I think you guys do an excellent job of managing it. But as we budget, it's the needs versus wants. And unfortunately, there's a lot of needs on some other areas like education, or areas which are just completely losing federal funding. So those are some of the balances that we have to make. And from your financials, it's like you guys are doing great.
If, if what you're suggesting, Ann, is that we leave this as an open item, I suppose we can, take a vote on that. In a budget of $440 million, I doubt that $10,000 is going to make any difference at all. I do appreciate that the request last time was 15,000 and you've gone down to 10 because you are able to generate monies on your own, and I guess you're trying to help the city the way that most of the departments are, and because this is a tough budget year. But we can leave this as an open item. I just don't think that $10,000 is going to move the needle in any direction, and it speaks well of the commission that they're coming in under what the allocation was last year.
That's why I started out by complimenting them. But Ed, I think every dollar counts, because every dollar is going to be put down to the taxpayers, and they're going to have to spend the money for it. So to me, whether it's $100 or $10,000, dollar counts.
I understand. It's just not going to change what taxpayers are going to pay. But I guess that's what I'm saying. But
Well,
in any event, we can keep this as an open item.
Mr. Chair, this is Troy. Can I jump in here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at the same thing jumped at me. I'm not sure. They asked the question and asked the question 3 times. And I'm looking at these numbers also. You're showing in 90,000, 80,000, 70,000, but you keep saying everything is up. So are the numbers correct or are they wrong? I mean, I'm still not clear on that.
The numbers are correct.
So then why do we keep saying it's up when it's 90 to 80 to 70? That's 20,000 down from 2 years ago. In revenue, I'm looking at on page 8, right there in front of us. I mean, okay, Ed, I don't know what to say. I mean, we're gonna sit here.
I look at it as an open item, and then let's move on to the next.
Yeah, I agree. And just
Okay.
as a footnote, I have to say every dollar we are looking at is important. Okay, let's move on.
Alan
right.
and Jeff, we're covering all the open items tomorrow night at the same time. I'll send both of you guys a link.
Well, then Tom, see if this is right, because I mean, I'm hearing one thing and I'm looking at another. That's all I'm just saying.
Troy, we'll follow up with them. We'll follow up with them tomorrow. And I understand what you're saying. I see the trend that you're looking at, and we'll follow up tomorrow and
Thank
get
you,
some
Jared.
additional information.
Okay, next up is fair housing.
So fair housing, last year was 188,000. Same story, coming down a little bit, 185,000. Recall that Margaret was heading this up for quite some time. She recently retired, but we have Jalen Seed, a council member, who is overseeing this. So Jalen, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Sorry, my camera isn't working. But yeah, like Tom had pointed out, the budget request did go down. The reason for that is that since we are hiring someone new, they are going to start at the lower tier of the pay scale. The only thing, like if you go to the next page, or let me see which page it is, the basic breaks down the line items. The only item that did increase was fringe benefits. And the reason being is that we had the budget for somebody who had a full family, just because we didn't know who we were going to be hiring. But I could announce that we did find somebody. We went through the process of redevelopment with the help of the mayor's office. And we did hire someone, Sabrina Roman, will be starting April 7th. But yeah, the budget request did go down. We did discuss dropping the commission events just because we wanted to see what we could save. But with somebody coming in new, we wanted to just give them a fair chance to really do some exciting and new work coming in. So we decided to keep that the same. But the budget did ultimately go down, and I believe the fringe benefits would probably decrease from our request based on the fact of who we hired. So I'll answer any questions or concerns anybody has.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Ed.
No, go on, Ann.
Mr. C, when did Margaret retire?
Margaret retired, I believe her official date was February 15th that she retired.
Of this,
Of 2025. Yeah, sorry.
of 2025 versus 2024?
Yes, she retired this year.
Oh, okay, because I know we were discussing this in the budget last year.
Yep.
Okay, so, and you have found someone to fill this slot,
Yes, we have.
even though the budget for next year and for this position has not been approved.
Well, because this budget is a position that is really not an option because it's by the consent order by the courts. So we have to fund this position, and that was based off the consent order. So we don't really have a choice to approve it or deny it, unfortunately. I mean, fortunately, yeah.
Have we gone back to see if this consent or gone to court or gone to legal to see if within the consent decree that we still need this? The consent decree, to my understanding, the mid-90s, 70s, like 1975. And that was before there was a CHRO at the state level. And Margaret was terrific. She was a great representative, city of Norwalk. She was notable in this area. I just question whether or not we need to fund this position, given that the decree is 50 years old, and given that times have changed and we've moved on, and there is the CHRO, which is what Margaret coordinates with. There's a CHRO where you can get an ombudsman and to go to. And I think I had asked last year if we can go to the state, go back to the courts, see if we do not have to buy a consent decree, which is years old and it is dated.
I understand that it's 50 years old, but unfortunately, the reality is, I mean, just living in Norwalk and growing up in Norwalk, the times haven't changed that much. And we do have the CHRO, but I think more than ever, we need fair housing, and we need a fair housing officer here in Connecticut. And here in Norwalk, we do have the CHRO, but we do need somebody, in my opinion, that is going to help represent the people of Norwalk and make sure that we give people a fair chance. It's so many forms of disability compared to from 50 years ago to now. There's things like elder discrimination with mental stability discrimination. So there's different forms of discrimination that are now being recognized. And of course, now we've gone to federal, that could be changed. But there's so many different forms of discrimination now, and we're seeing that it's still happening here in Norwalk. So we can. I mean, if somebody wants to try to bring that to the court, but that's something that I think we're going to have a challenge from the people. And I do think that this is a resource, like you said, Shane, with the other presenters, so every dollar in the taxpayer, we should be making sure we're taking care of them. But I think this is a resource for our taxpayers, for people that grew up here and want to continue to live here. Have a fair chance to be able to live and stay in Norwalk. So I do believe that this position is vitally important to the people in Norwalk. And I think that it'd be hard to go to the courts and think that the times changed that much, just because of what I'm seeing from not just as the commissioner on fair housing, but also as a councilman, just talking to constituents. It's not the times unfortunately have not changed that much where people are getting a fair shot to buy a home, rent a home. It's a lot of discrimination that's happening on a lot of different factors. And I think that this position is something that's vitally needed for the people in Norwalk.
I understand, but there, if you could also look at it in the context of, there have been other departments have come through. I think there was a request for either more staffing, or is the staffing for people to make sure that they are getting the, I can't remember the name, I want to say fair housing, but is that you could go and you can complain about your rent. And it's kind of the same conduit. So the question would be, is we consolidate the functions of the fair housing officer with the people who are also working with of Norwalk to make sure that they're getting their rent is not, you know, of market.
Yeah, that's something that could be looked at, but I think that'll take time to go through the courts. And I know that the parties, like, it have to go through the local NAACP. And I know that those parties, well, at least that party wouldn't agree to that. So it would be something that would have to go back to the court, and that would just take time.
Yeah, so this is not something that's within the purview of the BET. The fact of the matter is we do have a consent decree. We do have to fund that position until such time as the courts determine otherwise. I agree with Jalen. I think times have not changed very much. I think President Trump today signed an executive order eliminating the ban on segregated facilities in government. So it's the Fair Housing Commission also conducts tests to see that landlords are not discriminating, et cetera. So they do a lot more than just make sure that the rents are fair. They, I think that's probably the smallest part, the less important part of what they do. But the fact of the matter is, we still have the consent decree. We don't have a court order that says otherwise, and so until such time as that occurs, and once again, that's not our job or within our purview, we have to consider the position as it's been presented.
Then I would like as an open item the staffing on the city side, which is a similar function, and I'd like to understand. So maybe those functions could be moved into the function here.
I'm not sure we need to vote on that. You want to keep it as an open item? That's
And I have before we go, I have just a quick question. Tom, I'm looking at this page 13 you put up there. What is the $10,000 line? I don't know. Am I missing it? It says subtotal, but what is that line across in the middle?
I don't know. These are just sent to us. We don't put them together. They come from each of the individual grant areas.
Yeah, I believe that's I apologize. This is our first time actually not seeing this, but presenting this. Usually Margaret does. And this is for the maintenance and equipment purchases. And I could break that down if you guys want me to come back tomorrow. I could kind of go over what that is.
Yeah, just put that on
yeah.
the right line.
Yep.
And I agree with what you're saying, Jalen. And this is an important position, I think, in these times.
all right. So are we keeping it as an open item or are we not?
I don't know how that works, but
Yeah, I'm not sure if it needs to be, if we need to have a vote on that or what, but for the sake of whatever, let's just keep it as an open item and let's move on.
That's fine.
yeah, and have them just correct the form, Tom, for us.
All right. Next item is probate.
Yeah, just give me a minute to scroll there. So here's the cover page for the probate court. The request is for just under $35,000. Last year it was 15.4, and you'll note the the comment here that this was reduced by this board in half last year. And in January at the BET meeting, that was restored back to the full 30,413. We have Judge Doug Stern here to go through the highlights and answer any questions. Go ahead, Doug, or Judge. I'm
Sure.
sorry.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Hi, nice to see you all again from, I guess it was January. There were two questions outstanding from that meeting that I just wanted to bring up. One was a question about the deposits and how much the court took in. And I just wanted to report back that in 2023 and 2024, $2,185,144.16 was received by the court, and then obviously gone to Hartford in accordance with all of that. And then there was a question about how the state or probate court admin in general decides how many resources or the sort of resources to allocate to each individual court. And my response back was policy 502 from the probate manual, and regulation 29.3 describes that process. But it's essentially a probate budget committee meeting in conjunction with the Office of Probate Court Admin that allocates it. And I've never served on that committee, but hopefully that answers the questions outstanding from last time. We're back for the full year request. It's about $4,000 more than it was last year. And there were in other miscellaneous was about $8,000, and in the past it was 10 or 12. Supplies have gone up. I spoke with my clerk. That's in large part because we now use WB Mason instead of Staples. Staples, which we had been using happily, required a corporation credit card in order to maintain our account. And we don't have a corporation credit card, so we need to move. And I understand that process was more expensive. And I'm also told that we've used a lot of toner this year for the various needs, and various items, office expenses in general have been going up. But that is my understanding of the change in the numbers, and I'm happy to answer any additional questions if there are any.
I've got a quick question, Doug. How does the court personnel get paid? Or is it through the state? The overhead and everything else, how's that paid for?
Yep, all continuing legal educations for clerks and judges, salaries, benefits, insurance is all paid by the state, and in accordance with their payment schedule. And the statute requires the municipalities to handle the day-to-day cost of managing the office. And we take a look at the needs, and then we put it through an equation that breaks down the Norwalk and Wilton obligations, and that's how we've been doing it.
And what is the Wilton obligation relative to Norwalk's? What's the percentage or the dollar amount?
Well, the total is 45,846. So if someone could just subtract 34,843, I guess that's that. Then I guess that's
It's like three-quarters of the obligation is ours, more or less.
More or less, yes.
And do we have three-quarters more? I assume we have a three-quarters more use, if you will, of the court, or is that not the case?
Oh, well, I mean, we provide services for all of Norwalk and all of Wilton. There are approximately 90,000 people in Norwalk, and I think a little over 20 perhaps in Wilton. So that about sounds right, but it's the same equation that we've been using. So I apologize if I'm off a little bit, but I think that's about right.
So with this funding request that you've made, that will fulfill our obligation as it relates to that equation, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I would like to just add that I would say Norwalk contributes soft costs in terms of your office area. Is that correct? I mean, you don't rent to the city of Norwalk for the space that's provided in City Hall.
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit. Could you ask that question? Soft costs?
Well,
I didn't.
It's in kind, so your office is in the City Hall, is in City Hall.
Yes, Wilton pays rent directly to City Hall for its portion of our office.
And what is that amount?
Oh my goodness. Does Tom know? I don't know.
I know they pay us maybe $8,500, $9,000 a year. There's a whole calculation based on square footage and, the allocations of the percentages and how much, how much the probate office has as a percentage of the city hall. And, I don't actually do that calculation, but I know that we get a check for roughly $8,500 to $9,000 each year from them, from the town of Wilton.
And so Judge Stern, you do a great job because you bring in significant revenues. And I think one of the things we asked in January is if you could go back to your probate court administrator and see if they, given that you're contributing $2 million of north of $2 million of revenues to the state coffers, that in addition to your salaries and benefits, if they could take on more expenses, the administrative expenses that the city is bearing.
Well, I followed up, and they were in some ways confused by the question because it's a statutory requirement. So they sort of responded back that no matter how much money the state allocates for salaries and everything like that, it's still on the municipality to pay for the office supplies by statute. And that was essentially their response. If you'd like to follow up with the probate court admin, I'm sure there could be a discussion there, but that's the answer that I have.
And I think the other question that we have, you might be able to talk with our purchasing people, because maybe there are, since we purchase for the city and then there's purchasing for the Board of Education, maybe they could be purchasing for you. And actually that would ease some of your administrative burdens as well.
I'm sorry, ma'am, it was choppy and I didn't follow all. You mentioned the Board of Education and
I think one of the follow-ups that we asked for in January was whether or not you might be able to purchasing office for the city to help with your purchasing, and maybe it will reduce in some fashion the costs. So you don't have to individually. It will also potentially help you administratively.
okay. Could someone help me perhaps
Yeah,
understand? Is anyone
Yeah.
else, is it coming through on everyone else's end?
Judge, I think I got a little bit more than you did, and what Ann is suggesting is perhaps reaching out to the purchasing department that we have here to see if there are any savings to be gained. And I was thinking that there's something that we tried about or started off about a year or so ago, and those are business accounts with Amazon. And what you do is you set up a purchase order and then you sort of chip away at that. But before you go pursuing that, let me chat with the purchasing agent and see if it's possible to set one up for you. So instead of going through WB Mason, or perhaps in addition to WB Mason, you have an option, because that's what we do here. If I want to buy paper clips, I'll look at what WB Mason is charging. I'll look at what Amazon is charging, and whatever one is cheaper, we'll go with, as long as they're comparable. So that
Okay,
might
I
be
think
an
that's a
option.
wonderful, I think that's a wonderful suggestion. Who can I and Diane follow up with on
Well,
this?
let me tomorrow. I'll talk to Sharon, who's our purchasing manager, see if it's even possible, and if it is, then I'll put you guys in touch.
If that's an avenue that can lower the cost, thank you for the. I wasn't aware that that's how that works.
Yeah,
So
it's
great.
it's relatively new, and just a few areas were piloted, and I'm not sure it's rolled out to everybody, but let me just check to make sure that there are no roadblocks to you even looking into it. So I'll get back to you tomorrow when I have an answer.
Great, thanks.
Just a quick question, Judge. The number you started off with, the $2 million number, you said that was a balance number or a revenue number? Because I don't see any revenues on this, your 2-page sheet here, unless I'm missing something.
No, it's not on the 2-page sheet. It's deposits for the fiscal year.
Do you have a revenue line for your business,
But the
that
revenue goes to the
operation?
state of Connecticut though, right?
Yeah, it's all the state. It's about 18 years ago or so. It all got organized that way. So the money goes in the account and it gets accounted for and allocated to the state. We don't have any control over the dollars.
So that $2 million number you gave, is that the number of cases that came to you in a probate situation last year? Is that what you're telling me?
Well, the dollars that came in, yes, the dollars that came in.
And you get fees, the state, I'm sure, I mean, I had to go through probate, there are fees, right, that are charged to the respective clients, right?
Those are the fees, yeah, inclusive of that number is everything that comes in, all the fees.
And do those fees come to you or do they come through the state?
Everything comes through the state. We do not handle any money at all that comes in.
So if any probates that you handle and there's fees associated, the state collects those fees.
Well, I mean, in cases of checks and cash, we have a procedure of depositing it, but everything goes in the bank account and it's all completely controlled by the state. We don't write any of those checks.
And that statute you quoted, is that what you're saying, that is that the statute where we don't get fees? Is that what you're telling me?
Well, people in Norwalk and Wilton use our court, they pay fees, and the fees go to Hartford.
Okay, the question is, those
Statute
fees don't come
45,
back.
Statute 45A-8 is the municipal requirements for the, yeah,
Okay, so none of those fees that are paid in probate, you're saying they'll come back to the city. Is that what you're saying?
they don't.
Okay. If that's the case, if that could change, it'd be nice and that would cover
Oh,
your,
if our legislators are in complete control of that, we are a statutory body, so we don't have any
okay,
jurisdiction over.
I think that was the question we had last time, but if you're clarifying that, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
All right,
Transit District?
yeah, moving on to Transit District.
Good evening, everyone.
Yeah, we got Matt Pence here. So just a quick overview. This year's request is 660, let's call it 661. Last year, that was their original request. It was reduced to 611 during the recommendations. And I will say that this year, and I apologize, Matt, if I didn't let you know where you stood, but we're at the same position. So you had requested 661, and the current recommendation as of now is the same, 610, 885.
Okay.
So, this is our largest one by a whisker over the redevelopment agency. But Matt, take it away if you want to touch on anything that's changed or any variances or any highlights.
Yeah, I mean, I think high level, our operations are funded by the state, and we have a few mandatory programs that are short funded. And historically, we've relied on local contributions to cover those shortfalls. You may remember, 6 or 7 years ago, the agency was in a accumulated debt position of $3.5 million that we were able to reduce. We're still closing. We have a major facility renovation going on, and we're still finalizing our audit for fiscal year 24. It's taking a little bit longer just due to some accounting things we're working through with the auditors, but I don't anticipate any steps backwards in our net position and our debt. In fact, I think we're going to turn the corner soon. I think we'll have a positive position. We rely on local money to support things that the state does not cover, such as interest expense. One of the issues we have, it's not unique to us, all of the transit districts in the state, the funding for our operations comes at least a month, if not two, late. So we're always fronting operational costs. And as a result of that 610,611 from last year, we spent $196,000 in interest expense. So that was 32% of the local contribution. One of the things I would like to do for the agency, just in terms of being fiscally responsible, is to build a reserve so we don't always have to rely on our line of credit. What is unique this year, I think it's a good thing that the debt is cleared. We have a network redesign coming. It's to us in the transit world, and I think to the community, it should be a pretty exciting thing. we've spent about 2 years. We had a capital project working on something called a comprehensive operational analysis. They looked at all of our routes over the years. There were definitely some nuances. We had about 13, call it 14 local routes. And as a result, we're going to end up with 7 much simpler routes with higher frequency. It's going to be way easier for the passengers to understand. And it will help provide additional service on the weekends. Right now, we have an issue where there's really not much local bus service on Sunday. We have a growing city. So these are all things we're looking at. As part of that study, they came up with a cost neutral scenario, which is what we're going to first. And then over 5 years, we're going to increment to a 5-year recommendation and then a 10-year recommendation. Each recommendation adds more service to the growing city. So one of the things that I'd really like to do when we do this, it's going to be a big undertaking in the fiscal year. August 10th is the day we're going to launch our new network. I really want to get some energy behind it and have ambassadors out there to help educate the public. And I would like to have a free fare period so that it encourages people to ride and learn the system. We've learned after the pandemic, there was a period where the state and the governor pushed for a free fare period to get people back on public transportation. It was very effective. We saw good ridership recovery. As soon as the fares were restored, we saw a 20% drop in ridership. So for us, our goal is to grow ridership and to promote this new system. And my goal, is to use this local money for what we call launch support and also some free fares for a month, if not 2, for the residents here. If I had it my way, would probably ask for 705,000. After watching this, I see times are a bit tight. So, we're here to do the best we can and here for any questions.
I'll go because I remember this discussion last year. So of our $600,000 we might have granted to you, 195 of that is interest expense. Essentially, the cost of the working capital between when you get paid by the state and your expenditures. So it's a little bit like the city's having to do the same with the construction of the schools.
Yeah, that's fair. It's timing.
Okay, so have you gone back to the state, or have you and other transit systems have gone back to the states to see if you can get a faster payment?
We have, yeah. I mean, we talk about this all the time with the other districts. Quite frankly, I mean, we've seen some improvement. It used to be almost 2.5 months, and now it's getting closer to 1 month. They're turning around payments much faster. They know it's an issue. We have gone to them. It doesn't help any of us to have to use our local money for this, and not every agency has a line of credit. There are a number of agencies that have reserves, which I hope one day Norwalk does. But that is the right answer, would be to get the funding up front and not have this cost of working capital. But yes, we have gone to them many times. They're aware of it. Change, takes time, and some of the leadership up there we're encouraged with. Haven't had any promises though, and I think it's just they've cut the time down, and for however things work up there. Just a symptom of it.
In your expenditure statement, you have $460,000 in other professional services. What are those?
Are you on this sheet?
Yeah, I am. I am. I see what she's talking about. Which is a 20% reduction from last year, right? So what goes there that's illegal is above that, audit and tax, and this is temporary help and use of consultants. I'm pretty sure most of that is temporary help, and just bear with me. I want to make sure you get the right answer. And we've actually used outside contractors for a number of things that were non-related to transportation. Like, for example, my old position I didn't fill. So instead of having a finance lead, we use a fractional CFO firm. These are things that we use outside firms instead of hiring staff to help us with. And we've needed to rely on it more, and we're using less consultants. So that basically is the fractional CFO firm and other, more or less consulting firms that that fill the void for, a leaner staffing model here.
So let me ask you something, Mr. Pence. If
Mhm.
grant went from 600 to 400, could you manage that?
If the city grant did,
Mhm.
um, I think we have to understand what our goals are. And our goals, I believe, is in providing quality service and doing a good job with the transition to the new network. My biggest concern with doing that is once you do it, we'll never see that any money back again. And I think one of the goals is to build the reserve so we don't always have to rely on the line of credit. So I think that would set us in a pattern of, constantly relying on that 4 million line of credit that we have. So we'll kind of be tied to interest expense, for the long haul. Does that directly answer your question? I wouldn't, I'm almost done. 1 second. I would not advise it. I think it sets a dangerous scenario for us, but could we live with it? We'll make it happen.
So when you say build the reserve, how big is your reserve now?
Well, like I said, we haven't finished the audit. The debt was 123,000 last year. I think we're going to end up positive, maybe 100, maybe 200,000 once we figure this out. We're working on just making sure we're solid on some funding sources. But when your operating expenses are, and they're growing, I mean, we're required to provide paratransit service. They used to be 1.2, 1.3 million a month. We're out of COVID. We have more service. The paratransit service is really what costs a good amount. And so, and we can't control how many riders there are, but we're seeing more and more people use these paratransit services. So the higher our monthly expenses are, the more we rely on that line of credit. Trying to get to your comment. Sorry, just remind me what you were asking.
I asked how big a reserve that you've been.
Oh, right. Yeah. And so, I mean, I'd love to see 1 million, 1.5 million one day.
But currently your reserve is 200,000?
At best, I think when we finish the audit, about 200,000.
And where is your debt? Is it the bank? Is it with?
Yeah, it's a revolving line of credit with the local bank here. And we're subject to fluctuating interest, which hasn't helped us the last, few years. It's prime plus a quarter.
Is one of
I have to jump in. And how much is the line of credit?
It's a $4 million line of credit.
And you just said something that you said the state has made quicker payments, you said, right? 2.5 months down to 1 month. Is that what you said?
Yeah, they're pretty solid. They've gotten down to 1 month. But I'm also looking at.
So why is the interest expense exactly the same? Wouldn't you think that would be down a little lower if you're getting paid quicker and you're borrowing less?
Yeah, you would. I just, you can't predict where interest rates are going to go. And you also can't predict, there's so many elements. What is a big concern of ours is similar, I think, to the schools. We had about $18 million of capital expenditures for our renovations. That's not just operating, that's 80% federal, 20% state. The federal is a pretty quick process. The state, those actually take a while. So I was a little bit conservative there until we get past this construction project. It's hard to really say that's going to go down. But ignoring the capital piece of it, you are correct. If payments are coming in more timely, you would think, and interest rates are held flat, that should go down.
And you're paying a bank that $200,000 in interest expense every year.
That's what we did last year.
Jared, a question for you. I mean, just like Ann said, can't we use a ban or a TAN or something, short-term borrowing, or paying out?
Yeah, I don't mean to interject here. Before Jared had got here, it was Henry, and we had a number of conversations. He was asking the nature of our borrowing and many questions on how it worked, because he was asking the same question. He says he wanted to help us, but once they kind of dove into the functionality of the line of credit, the conclusion was it didn't make sense. Now, maybe there is a better way. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you're paying. Okay. And the other question is, yeah, that's something that we need to take a look at, because that seems to be we're paying outside funding. Well, maybe you can do better internally for that. I mean, I don't know.
And I would also, given that we have relationships with banks because we hold large deposits with banks because we get property taxes and the expenses go out. Maybe they can do something better for you. And I said your outstanding debt at best $1.5 million. Is that correct, or 3.5 million?
Well, you mean like at any point in time, how much are we drawn? Like I said, the capital makes it very hard because with construction, those payments are large, and the operating is starting to work with the state, it's starting to work like a more well-oiled machine. And I could tell you with confidence, it's not going to be more than a month. But some of these capital projects, the amount of review that they have to do on the state side just to get the payments processed, it just takes a while.
That's not my question. Is what's your peak borrowing?
Oh, our peak borrowing is probably about 3 million. Now, if once we're past this major facility renovation, which is supposed to be done in September, our peak borrowing will be about 1.7, maybe 2 million.
So that would allow you to money because you can have commitment. I'm going to defer to Mr. Jelleret, who is the commercial banker and understands that.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and the other thing I have is you mentioned other cities. You're fortunate that we have that $4 million line. What are the other cities that don't have it? How are they doing this?
Well, I mean, one of them was Danbury, and they, we spoke, and they came to us, and they went to the same bank we're going to get this line, and it's keeping them alive. But before that, this is Housatonic Area Regional Transit in Danbury. They had a rainy day fund. They had the reserve that we're looking for, and they also had structural deficits, and it got chipped away at. But it's a matter of balancing funding and levels of service. So,
okay, my position is this, Jarrett. Please look into this and see if you could do something for them on a short-term basis, because paying out $196,000 when we have money, I don't know how much money we're sitting in the bank currently right now. I mean, kind of crazy, in my opinion.
But isn't our money also, aren't we collecting interest on our money? So if we,
Yes.
Yeah, but you're not paying.
It's not just sitting in a bank. It's actually being used, and so if we're subject to the same expense as the Norwalk Transit
Let's just
Authority.
check with that, Garrett. And I don't know what they're paying. Prime plus, what are you guys paying? Prime plus what on the loan?
prime plus a quarter.
And prime right now is at what?
I don't know offhand. I mean,
I think it's about 5.5.
Okay, so you're paying almost 5.75% for this right now.
Sure.
And rates don't look like they're going to be moving anytime this year, maybe 2 times down. All right, Jared, that's my request. Okay, so.
Sure. Yeah, I get the point. We'll look into it.
Yeah, Jared, happy to connect with you and work through this. I mean,
Yep.
I'm a taxpayer too, and it doesn't feel good to pay interest, but I also do strongly feel I don't think it's much different than the city who looks at their rainy day fund and they manage it and they're proud of it. I think a healthy transit district would also have a rainy day fund.
Yeah, we talked about this last time. This. We talked about this, and I just want to see if we could move this forward, the discussion.
Yeah, for sure.
Excuse me. The current federal rate is 7.5%. So if we're playing prime plus a quarter, that's 7.75%. So it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been pretty. No, I'm not going to disagree with you on that. I mean, it wasn't long ago. It was like 2.5%, 3%, and it was a lot softer. The interest has really crushed all of us,
Well, you're an important part of the city of Norwalk, and people use your services, and you guys do a great job. I see your buses. I know from the senior streets, you're very well used.
Thank you.
So let's use the powers that the scale that we get from the city of Norwalk, so that everybody wins.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. And of all these things to look at, to have a conversation about interest is very reasonable. So I'm happy to work collaboratively, and whatever resources you guys have to support us. I mean, we're here and we'll pay you back as soon as we get the money. If there's a way, we're partners in this,
exactly.
Thank you.
All right, redevelopment agency.
I'd like to leave this as an open item for us to talk about in terms of the funding.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, is that all for us?
Yes, thank you, Matt.
I want to thank you for your time and
All right,
as always,
thanks,
your
Matt.
support. Appreciate it.
All right, final one for the evening is redevelopment agency, which is headed up by Brian Bedoli, who could not join us tonight, but we do have Steve and Ivan here. The request for fiscal 26 is 500,000, same as last year, which is also the same as the previous year. So this has been at least 3 years in a row at 500. Stephen, would you like to address any highlights or unique items for this request?
Absolutely. So good evening, everybody. My name is Stephen. I'm the Director of Housing and Capital Projects for the Norwalk Redevelopment Agency, and obviously here on behalf of the Redevelopment Agency tonight. The requested funding will be used to continue to support the administration of approximately $40 million of active and secured grant-funded capital projects throughout Norwalk. We were able to secure another $15 million in raise funding. It's billed now, came back to build. So our reported grant dollars are up from last year. In addition to the capital grants, the requested funding enables us to continue to carry out planning efforts, negotiate real estate transactions such as Webster Lot and 30 Monroe Street, and other activities in benefit of Norwalk. Our request of $500,000 is the same as the prior year request, and it's the necessary resource to be able to continue to administer projects and activities that we carry out on behalf of and in coordination with the city. Currently, the agency pays for about 60% of the costs associated with carrying out these activities and projects with its own funds. Without the 500,000, we would be required to shift the responsibility to the city to carry out the management of projects and other administrative efforts that we're currently handling. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have or provide any extra details that you might need.
You said that you're during $40 million worth of grants.
Yep.
Can you please give those grants to your revenues and your expenditures?
I can go over a couple of the grants. You cut out for me again too. I heard revenues and expenditures there. I also did not put the operating budget together. So if there's anything that I'm missing out on, I'm happy to follow up tomorrow. But if you could just repeat the question.
You manage, and getting all these grants is really incredible. It's a big job, and it's a great job that you guys do. And $40 million is a lot of money, and you can do a lot. But my question is, with that level of grants, isn't there a way you can be self-funding through your grants?
A lot of the capital grants don't allow us to request administrative or engineering funds. So the short answer is no. We try to where we can, and we take advantage of any administrative funding that we can, but it still creates a gap in what we're able to do and to provide. As an example, between two brownfields projects, we have $4 million of remediation funding, and we're not allowed to request any administrative funding through the DECD office as a part of that. I think between the two of those, we're allowed like $5,000 per grant in legal fees, and that just doesn't cover what is needed to administer and carry out the project correctly and negotiate with the state, and also prepare any documents related to it. So unfortunately, we are very limited by the grant guidelines for what we're able to take administratively, and the requested operating budget is a necessity to be able to carry those out.
You mentioned that you're administering grants or something that's with the Webster lot. Is that the parking lot?
Yeah, the parking lot there. So in addition to cleanup activities, we've got $4 million between the EPA and the DECD brownfields offices. As well with that, Brian is a real estate guru in some senses. So he has been handling and coordinating with the city for the land sale, similar to 30 Monroe the previous year, with the land disposition agreement, to make sure that the city is getting the full benefit from the land sale proceeds and anything else that they need housing and development wise. to leverage additional affordable units or anything else that might cover.
That you're doing a service to the parking authority, which has $3 million in revenues. Is there a way that you can get funding from them, since they do have some?
No, not that I'm aware of. Anything that we would take from others, I think it creates that same gap. If they're providing us with funds for this, then they're eliminating their own funding availability. The 500,000 is really a necessity for this. We stretch everything that we can out of the grants, and the management of the grants to be able to make up our operating budget. And every grant that we have, we take the maximum administrative fees that we can out of it.
And are the maximum administrative reflected into your revenue budget that you have given us here?
Yes, anything that we can take out of active grants for administrative purposes is within this. Again, we are limited on what we can do for that, which creates this gap in the need for the request.
So what is federal CDBG?
CDBG is a community development block grant, which we administer for the city. So it's listed there as admin fees that we are able to take from that. The admin that we are able to is largely, or if not entirely, put into administering that specific grant, the management of subrecipients, the management of projects funded through the community development block grant. So that is, factored into the budget, but it is used as well. So we are limited and capped on those funds as well for what we can take for administrative purposes, and it just doesn't cover the additional grant funded capital projects that we have.
In your revenue, it says City of Norwalk FHO position. Is that?
I believe that is the Fair Housing Officer, which was already presented before. That position is still staffed through the redevelopment agency, but they have a separate chair and request and everything. I don't have all the information on that. So if you do have additional questions for that, I can have Brian answer through email as early as tomorrow. But I believe that reflects the same amount that was in the fair housing position that Jalen presented on earlier.
I'd like to actually go back to that. What did Tom, what did Jalen, what was requested in this? The
All
total.
right, so let's 176,591 is what they're anticipating coming in, so
Their total funding request is 185,164.
Yeah, they've got 174 here. And what was the other one? 176, did I say?
Yeah. And then under other, there's a NRA projects. I'm sorry, Mr. Ivan, I'm looking under the other revenue.
Yeah, right here, 300,000 for other revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have to have Brian answer that. I don't have an answer for right now, if you don't mind. I will submit the question to him and have him respond to the board with an email.
Sure. I have revenue close to $120,000, which is interest. $19,000 of interest income from notes, and the other is $100,000 in interest income. Where is the cash or whatever that you're getting the interest income from?
Don't quote me on this, and again, I will have Brian respond. I believe that is from federal funds that are reserved for housing projects that might sit in an account to accrue interest. Those are also reserved for HUD-funded rehabilitation projects that only have housing efforts. But again, if you don't mind, I will submit that to Brian as a question, because I didn't put this together, and have him give you guys a proper response.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Just a quick follow-up. So you're saying that you're looking for 500,000 to support, you said 40 million in grants? Is that the number I saw? Or,
40 million right now.
and you're always looking for new grants, and that number's constantly changing?
That number is constantly changing. I believe we're at a good point right now in which we're taking a break and applying for more things because we have to, administer these projects and do have limited budgets, but we are always looking for new grant opportunities to benefit the city.
Well, I've always told Brian, I wish, I always say this is, you get a great bang for the buck for you guys, and keep up the good work. This is one I have no problem with at all.
We appreciate it, and I'm sure Brian appreciates it as well. And we try to leverage our money and bring more back to the city.
A quick
Great.
question. You said you're slowing down in requesting grants. What's the reason behind that?
We've been fortunate enough to secure so much funding. So we need to administer the current grants that we have. Again, we do look for more grants to apply to. The $15 million in the raise or build grant that we did receive last year was a big one that will take a lot of effort out for us. So we only have so much capacity.
Is there a penalty in receiving too much in grants, or if you don't?
They have expiration, and if you don't, if you're not demonstrating that you're carrying out the project, they'll start to ask questions or limit your ability to move the project along. They can recall their funds.
Understood.
Kendrick, in TMP, Jim Travers and his team went through a similar challenge where the state was beginning to, question them. It's like, well, you got to get moving on the ones you have before we'll consider doing others. And Jim, with some resource and staffing alterations, was able to continue the flow. So they were in a similar situation for a while.
Got it.
We do have other we have applied for other things in between and still do. It's just to support some other organizations. We were able to secure, I think it was like 3.5 million for the housing authority through the brownfields grant that we did with a pass-through agreement, that they are not eligible to apply for themselves. So we take the responsibility of applying, even if we're not the ones that are ultimately managing that. But again, that is a staff time burden to apply for and get everything else, even if we're bringing the money into the city to support other organizations. Yeah, there's just only so many projects that we can manage at once without, bringing on more staff.
Just one more question. Is there any risk to your federal community development block grant?
We are actively figuring that out. The political landscape, especially around HUD and some of the other efforts going on, is kind of up in the air. We don't know is the simple answer. We're preparing for it as best that we can. We're staying up to date with any kind of notices or anything else that comes out. That is an estimated dollar amount. They have not released the funding allocations for the year. And if they were to cut and reduce that, then some of the operating budget that we have through CDBG would be reduced, accordingly. So the short answer is we don't know until they give us additional guidance. But for right now, they have indicated that everything is as should be.
As good as they can.
Yeah. We get a very loose answer when we ask.
Yeah, that's what they probably don't know.
We check in with them occasionally and through other consultants, and talk to Greenwich and some of the other CDBG recipients to see what they think. But everybody's kind of in the dark.
If we could just have some of that information back.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions? There being none, I believe that is the end.
I just jump in for a second, Ed, before
Sure,
we
yeah.
sign
Yeah.
off. So tomorrow night is we shifted the Board of Education and then the open items. Is there any general preference on which one we want to go first? I think the open items would probably go a bit quicker than the Board of Education, but I'm open to suggestions. Just if we do the open items first, and I can tell the Board of Education they've got another 15 or 20 minutes before they need to log on.
When you say do the open items first, are you talking about taking votes on those items?
I guess we need to come to a consensus on whether we're leaving the request or the recommendation as is, or whether we're going to modify it. We don't have a whole lot. There's two in Le Mans area, one on the library part-time, and then the three community, the family coordinators in Deanna's area. And then the three from tonight, Harbor Commission, Fair Housing with Jalen, and then the one with Matt that we just finished on the transit district. I suspect that those will move pretty quickly.
My feeling is that I think Ed's going to be here tomorrow, right? Is that
Yes.
tomorrow? Yeah. Okay. So my personal feeling is that we'd leave the open items until the end, unless there's a reason to have them at the beginning. Are people going to be here with answers or with more information? Is that why perhaps?
Well, at least I know that Lamond and Deanna have already responded with some of the answers, but I invited them for tomorrow night.
I see.
In case you had any additional follow-up questions. And then
Okay.
obviously the ones for tonight. We give them
Okay,
a day
yeah.
to come back and address.
All right, so we don't necessarily need to vote on the open items. We just need to get all that information tomorrow, and then maybe after the Board of Ed, we can make a decision on the open items right after that, but we don't have to make decisions before the Board of Ed presents, correct?
I'm trying to be sensitive to having,
Sure.
6 to 8 people waiting through the entire
Yeah.
Board of Education, which generally provokes a lot of discussion and dialogue.
Right. Okay. So I think that makes sense to have it at the beginning, but
Can I make a suggestion that maybe we do the Board of Ed tomorrow night, but let's leave open items to the public hearing? So
I
that,
agree with that. I think the open item should be at the end.
we should hear what the public has to say about this budget, and then we can make further decisions based upon their feedback.
well, when is the public meeting?
Next one,
Wednesday, the 26th.
The
Next
26th.
Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah, a week from tonight.
Okay, so we leave the open items until after that public meeting.
Yeah.
I got
Yeah,
you.
because we don't have to vote. We don't have to vote on our final decisions until after the hearing, right?
Usually at that, yeah. I don't.
After the hearing.
Well, we're
Right.
not voting on the
Not that
total-
night, but-
Yeah, we're not voting on the total the total budget that night, but we
Yeah.
can.
So we'll have
Yeah,
the people, the department heads, give us the additional information on the open items before the Board of Ed. The Board of Ed goes, and then we don't take any action on the open items until after the public hearing. Is that the suggestion?
yes.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Tom, quick question. Is there a way to see what the increase across all departments are, the variance?
Yeah, I sent you each one of the divisions that we covered night by night, right? So you want to see the whole thing? You want
Yeah.
all, okay, yeah, we have that. I can send it out.
One other thing, Tom, can you send out a list of all the new positions that have been since 2020? And so we can see what ones might have been COVID related and how that works. Like, I just don't know if the personnel increase has been since 2020 to 2025 and how that
okay.
has changed given, COVID funding, and now COVID funding's going away. I just like to understand. That.
All right, I'm pretty certain we have that in the annual report, but I'll dig out the page and make sure that it has I want to say it's like 10 years of history going back.
Perfect.
But I'll find it.
Perfect. Yeah, because in the budget book, it only goes back 3 years, but I think, a relative blip is the COVID period with all the extra that we got.
I will say that has always been one of the mayor's focal points. Is he's very, very sensitive to increasing headcount. So it's usually it's a pretty rigorous process to add a new head. But It's been done, but not too frequently, but yeah, I'll dig that out.
That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And
So-
Ed, just one thing for Jared. Can you clarify, please, what's going on with whether we do the cap for the for the capital budget or not? I'm a little confused, so we need to know where we are with that, so we know where we are with the operating budget, so.
Yeah, I think the mayor is going to address that at some point in the near future. But I think the administration's perspective on it is that the way the language is written right now is that it's a recommendation from the BET to the Common Council. And I think, you know, I don't want to get into a lot of detail tonight. If there should be another discussion, it may you know, you may want to address it in a different meeting where it's on the agenda and discuss it in that form, so you can have more, you know, more in-depth conversation about it.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I mean, whatever it is illegal, whatever the law, whatever the charter says, that's what it is. So I just want to be
That's
able to
the
know
way-
what how we stand on that.
That's the way that our attorneys are reading it now.
All right, so just
Thank you.
to be clear, tomorrow night, am I inviting the open item people, or are we giving them a little bit of time to pull together the backup and documentation and then have them come to the public hearing?
No, I would come to the open items meeting that we'll have after the public hearing.
Okay, so
Well,
they're
Different.
strictly Board of Ed tomorrow night.
My feeling is that they present tomorrow and at the open items meeting is really just for us to discuss the open items, rather than have this whole review thing again, isn't it? Isn't the point to have all the information by tomorrow and then have a public hearing and then decide after the public hearing what we're going to do with the budget, including the open items, but by then we will have had all of the information. So I think it makes sense to have them up here tomorrow, present before the Board of Ed, so they can, you know, be done with it, then go into the Board of Ed, then do the public hearing, and then at our follow-up meeting, then we decide on the open items and the overall budget. I think it seems.
I agree with that 100%, Ed. But
That'd
that's how we've done it in the past.
Okay, all right, so I'll invite everybody again for tomorrow night. And probably have them come, well, I don't know, will we need them again at the public hearing, you think?
I don't think so.
Okay,
Public hearing is really just a public hearing. There's no dialogue.
right,
From our
yeah,
side anyway.
our action is to, you know, listen and take in the feedback from the community, right?
Right,
Not necessarily respond to questions, but
correct.
take the feedback.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right, fair enough. Anything else?
No, thank you, everyone.
Okay. Let's
I'm
see you all tomorrow.
Just a motion. I do the motion to close.
Motion to adjourn.
at
Okay.
8:05.
Thank
All
you.
right, thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
I know. Esther, did you get that? 8:05, Troy Jelleret.
Yep, got it.
All right. And
Thank you.
thank you very much for the help. That was I thought I was getting good at Zoom, but it was a humble reminder.
No worries.
All right, thanks.
Have a
Bye.
good night.
You
Goodbye.
too.